Hi guys, so this video is going to look at the definition of feminism. There's going to be a few ways we're going to explore that, but first, let's go over a brief and highly watered down history to help us understand what we may be looking at. Feminism is usually broken down into three waves, each with more or less of their unique triumphs. The first wave started in the 1840s and ended around the 1920s. It really focused on women's suffrage and legal issues like owning property. It's normally marked as first having started at the famous Seneca Falls Convention in 1848. The second wave began in the 1960s and ended around the mid-90s. During this time, women fought for family rights, a more equal opportunity to better jobs with better pay, and reproductive rights. Feminists of the second wave wanted women to have the freedom and opportunity to build their own lives. This era of feminism is where the stereotypical, bra-burning, man-hating feminist comes from. This stigma is what has created a backlash in the next wave of feminism. Third wave feminism, starting around the mid-90s, is commonly characterized as an all-inclusive movement. It strives for equality for LGBT communities, as well as all races and religions. As a result of that second wave backlash, third wavers are more outgoing about embracing their sexuality, but not to be limited by it. The third wave's end is very controversial. Some say it has ended, and some say it's still happening, mostly depending on their opinion of post-feminism. Post-feminism is the idea that women in current society are equal to men, and that current feminism is pushing for the dominance of women over men. There's not much proof for this theory, however, even so, it's not uncommon. It's quite like a bomb for feminists. So, back to the title, the definition of feminism. We're going to explore that through three different mediums. The first being dictionaries, an obvious choice. The second being from popular feminist writers. And then we'll check out the World Wide Web, but more specifically through the social dictionary-like website UrbanDic. After that, I'm going out into the real world to conduct interviews focused on gaining insight of what people think the definition of feminism is and where they got that from. Merriam-Webster states two different definitions for feminism. The simple being the belief that men and women should have equal rights and opportunities, and the second being organized activity in support of women's rights and interests. Moving on to Oxford, which states that feminism is, quote, the advocacy of women's rights on the grounds of political, social, and economic equality to men, end quote. Oxford also has a definition for feminist, which is, quote, a person who supports feminism, end quote. On to literature. Bell Hooks is a feminist author who defines feminism as, quote, a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation, and oppression, end quote. The second author is an Eastern feminist, Fatima Mernissi, who doesn't have an exact definition for feminism as Bell Hooks did, but, quote, her work represents an attempt to undermine the ideological and political system that silences and oppresses Muslim women. Lastly, before the interviews, we'll look at UrbanDic. The most popular definitions of feminism from UrbanDic is, quote, the belief that women are and should be treated as potential intellectual equals and social equals to men. These people can be either male or female human beings, although the ideology is common and perhaps falsely associated mainly with women, end quote. UrbanDic's most common definition for feminist is, quote, someone who supports women's rights. Simple as that. Thinks girls in poor countries should go to school, is opposed to those music videos that consist of like 3 minutes of boob shots, etc. Equality is cool, guys. Feminism is cool, end quote. When I was reading the feminist definition, I found another really popular word, feminazi. The definition of feminazi is, quote, a feminazi is not a feminist. Feminists believe in equal rights for us. Feminazis just make us look stupid. Feminazis believe that all men are idiots, wearing a bra is a symbol of oppression. Personally, I find bras comfortable. Shaving our legs is apparently showing that we give in to male pressure to be attractive, holy. Snowmen must be called snow people, and that any song that mentions a girl is supporting rape or whatever. It's apparently against sexism, making them all, hashtag, a huge effing hypocrite, end quote. It's really quite angry, but this definition really demonstrates that backlash I was talking about earlier towards the second wave. So, now let's take a look at some interviews to see which, if any, of the definitions prevail in today's society. Are you a feminist?
Could you explain the term feminist to me?
I don't have an opinion.
Yes, I am.
I would say somewhat.
No.
Are you a feminist?
No.
No.
In a sense, yeah.
What do you think the definition of feminism is?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess it's just support of activities, important activities related to female, people.
I think feminism is the act of advocating for women's rights and making sure that women, they may not be the same level as men regarding other things like strength and things like that, but they should have equal opportunities. What men have, women should have.
I guess feminist would be someone who has a high opinion of being a female, who believing that females are something of worth and that females are equal status of, I guess, men.
I think feminism is, like I said, is believing that women and men should be treated equally and have equal rights. But at the same time, I think it's like hardcore, like women are this, women are that. There shouldn't be a difference between men and women.
I believe feminism would be trying to advance women in society.
That women should be treated equal, and that we should put in place all the rules and regulations to make that happen.
I believe in the equality between the sexes, and that's basically the heart of what feminism is. I also think that feminism is important for intersectionality, because my problems aren't the same as someone else's problems, but I can help them find solutions.
Do you think education about feminism is important?
I think education that is unbiased and scientifically based about feminism is important, but other forms of maybe more cult-like thinking within feminism is not important.
I do to a point, yes.
Yes. Based on the histories of equal rights and stuff, I believe that being informed about feminism is, I guess, it should be aware of it and should be taught in schools. So I guess I'd say yes in that.
Yeah, I do. As Muslim, it's a big deal that women are equal to men, because it's the first religion that brought that equality from equality between men and women. And so I think it's a big thing that some cultures and some religions kind of take that away.
Yes, I mean, I feel like it is, because I mean, they are getting sometimes discriminated against, and I feel like everyone should know like that isn't okay. Like, we're not taught that today.
Sure.
Okay. And have you ever taken a class or otherwise studied the topic of feminism?
No, not really.
Okay.
Of course, I'm kind of old. So.
Age is nothing.
No, but at the time that I was in school, it wasn't as popular or, concerning of a topic. So.
Okay. And have you ever taken a class or otherwise studied the topic of
Just in Brazil.
We studied about women's rights. We didn't really call it feminism. We usually.
I haven't, but as an education major, I'm doing my graduate studies in art education. We deal with multiculturalism and ethnicity and feminism, so we develop curriculum in that direction.
I have taken a kind of cultural class, but I've never taken a women's study class or anything like that.
No, neither here and neither back home in Brazil.
I have not, no.
Okay.
I have not on campus, no.
Okay. No?
I've read a book or two on the subject of feminism, one of them by Bell Hooks, but beyond that I haven't taken a class on it, no.
Big difference between feminism and feminazi. I've known two. I've known, I guess, a feminazi and a feminist. But feminazi is usually like how like when you first, I feel like a lot of guys automatically think that feminism goes with the term feminazi, which is like the whole over up and top that like men are disgusting or women need this and women need that. But when the actual term feminist just is as simple as someone who supports women's rights, and there's a very big difference. I didn't know that before. So.
I don't agree with it. I think feminazi is not a good term to speak about those women that fight for equal rights. And I think that's the way they choose for make more impact in their claims to achieve their goal. So.
And I think kind of the feminazi issue kind of borderlines into misandry, where it's not the belief that both sexes are equal. It kind of turns into women are superior for X or Y reasons, and that's not feminism.
So, now that we've seen the interviews, how do we conclude? The question, to refresh, was, which, if any of the definitions we looked at, prevailed the social definition of feminism? Well, almost everyone said it had to do with women's rights and equalities. Specifically, there were some answers that mentioned social and economic equality. However, there were also many answers that had negativity, confusion, or hesitation. Additionally, the majority of people did not at first identify themselves as feminists. Because of that, and those last clips looking at feminazi, we can see that the stigma of the second wave backlash still exists. But we can also see that while it exists, it does not prevail the definition of feminism. None of the definitions did, showing that they all play a part in the subconscious social definition. If we look at this historically, we heard more people talk about items referring to the first and second wave feminisms than the third wave and post-feminism. Unlike STEM areas, we can only analyze and not make a formal conclusion. But from this project, it's evident that the majority believes education about feminism is important. After thinking about it, almost everyone said they would be a feminist under their definition, but likely due to that lack of education, they weren't able to connect the label to the source. Before I end, just one other observation. While interviewing, women were much more likely to turn me down, especially women who looked to be past their mid-20s. They all said they did not want to be filmed. That's all I have for you then. Thanks so much for watching.
Take this pink ribbon off my